Hello, and welcome to the Learning to See podcast. I'm Jen Allward, your host, and today we're going to continue our conversation with art therapist Dr. Amy Backos from San Francisco, California. In the last episode, we got to hear how she was introduced to art therapy and how making art helps us know ourselves and be present, which is so important in daily life and also mitigates how trauma impacts us. In today's episode, we'll discover how being present calms the chaos and reminds us that we can rebuild. Look in the show notes below for some helpful links, and remember that to get access to all the bonus content like videos, downloads, inspiring and helpful links, art prompts, and reflection questions, etc., pop on over to Patreon to check out the different membership opportunities available at Learning to See Studio. Okay, are you ready? Let's jump on in and learn to see how our creativity can be put into practical use as we protect ourselves and support others directly impacted by crisis and disasters. If you haven't seen the first part of this interview, I encourage you to go back and check it out. We've covered a lot of great stuff in there, from cognitive anchoring and divergent thinking to an art project that will help you see how your past and future shape your present. As we transition into this next portion, I just wanted to recap briefly about how, especially when a crisis or disaster hits and we want to jump in and help right away, it's really important to slow down, to remember that building trust takes time. And in order to respond wisely in a way that blesses, comforts, and supports people, we need to be culturally and scholarly humble. One of the most important questions to ask is, what is most needed now? Then, when we know that answer, we can creatively find ways to meet that need. For example, we can make and sell our own artwork to raise awareness and money to send. Then perhaps we throw in a little handmade card or a sketchbook and markers with the care package of groceries and supplies they've requested.
There's ways to bring the creativity, but you have to provide what's needed first. People can't get creative if they're without shelter and food.
And at the same time, some creativity and beauty can offer peace and respite in there. But yeah, you got to know who they are.
So, helping people feel confident that they have what it takes, right? We create our own feelings and our thoughts about things, but we also can create our environment. And so it's completely possible to rebuild. We have such a long history of starting over, in America, like we'll just start over again and rebuild something completely different. California with the wildfires, we know that that happens and we always come back, always connecting to all the generations behind us. That really like is so soothing to me. Those two ideas that we just create all the time
Mhm.
and that it really is biological. There's generations and generations behind us that have led to this point and survived, and we really do have that capacity. A little bit of what we talked about before, like, how many grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-great-grandparents conspired to get us here, right? There is so much more context and history than just our lives so far. That we really are a part of a much bigger thread. And that is one of those ideas that helps me anchor. So anything we can tap into that feels like that golden thread that goes all the way through our lives, pausing, just recognizing it can feel really bad today, but it's just this tiny piece of our life.
Yeah. And practicing that being in the moment is so helpful when chaos hits. Because you've already practiced doing it. You know that you can find that little thread.
Yeah.
It's in there no matter what's going on around us. And yeah, I think closing your eyes, turning the screen off,
Yeah.
all
But
the
like
kinds of
60% of our brain is engaged. If I just like give it a little rest, that's huge.
that's a big chunk of brain you're giving a rest to.
Yeah, there's a lot of studies that talk about one of the predictors of someone developing PTSD after a trauma is dissociation. And so when people dissociate, it's a defense mechanism to like they can't handle what's happening. What's happening is so awful. And many people dissociate, they kind of check out.
Mhm.
And when we do that, it feels better for that bit of time. And then people keep doing it and keep doing it. And it makes it stick longer and kind of feel worse. And
Yeah.
so that idea of anchoring in the moment relieves so much of the trauma response. And I have to say that we all have traumas. We don't have to have PTSD to benefit from these little like tips. People
Hmm.
benefit from, even if you don't have PTSD, just they benefit from the same treatment of engaging in the present, because when we check out, things get worse.
Yeah, a good word. When we check out, it gets worse.
Yeah,
That defense mechanism can be life-saving.
absolutely.
In certain moments, that dissociation is a super helpful thing to get you to the next thing. Like, you don't need to pay attention to all the details around you. If you can get you and your kid to the safe spot over it, you don't need to pay attention to any of the other details. It's okay to feel like you're sort of floating in on autopilot, not absorbing stuff. But it's the continued disassociation when you no longer need to, like, survive in that second. That's where the things come in. Like, those natural responses to trauma that people get scared about are good and helpful. Like, they're wired into us for a reason on purpose. But it's
Absolutely.
when we get stuck in them that's when the PTSD and all of the issues start really compounding on us. So,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, we can fight, we can run away, we can freeze, we can fawn, where we just try and make the situation as smooth as possible, right? That's women have been using that one for forever.
forever.
Yeah, but they're all biological processes, as you made note of. It's a really important point. We can't really choose what our body's going to do. Our body will decide in that moment how to best survive.
Hmm.
Yeah. There's no shame in any of it.
Yeah. Did you catch that? This is one of those important things that I really want people to understand is that dissociation has gotten a bad rap. We do it all the time, and there's nothing clinically wrong with doing it. When you daydream, when you go on autopilot on the highway, when you're driving, not that I'm encouraging that, but when you get lost in a good book or a movie, when you just feel a little bit like detached from what's going on, nothing inherently wrong with that. It's when we get stuck in dissociation that it becomes a problem. When we lose track completely of time and our identity, and we don't know how to come back. When it causes a disruption in our ability to function, our ability to have a relationship, to go to work, to be able to shift modes from work to home to things with friends, that's when it becomes a problem. And then we have our trauma responses. When something bad does happen, we tend to have these automatic pilot things that our bodies do. We don't choose them, they just do them. We can choose to get out of them once we recognize them, but there's things that we just automatically do when we're scared. We get ready to fight or run, or we freeze, we're sort of paralyzed. I'm sure you've seen this in real life or on the movies where something terrible is happening. You see the car coming towards the kid, and what are the parents doing? Standing there, frozen. No! It's often somebody else who can come in and run and grab the kid and rescue them, right? And then there's the examples of when the fight and flight response really gets that adrenaline going, and that's when you hear of the superhuman feats of the very petite mother lifting an entire like 15 passenger vehicle up off her kid. And then there's the fawn response, and like Dr. Amy mentioned, it's when we're trying to appease whoever's doing the harmful things towards us. And the flood is when we're just overwhelmed and we're thinking and we're thinking and we're thinking and we're thinking. And the flop is when we're exhausted and go take a nap. So I'll have a PDF in the write-up as well that describes these a little bit better. And just like dissociation, none of these are bad. We don't need to beat ourselves up or think that we have some illness or something's wrong with us for these responses, unless we find ourselves stuck and find ourselves operating only from these places. God gave these responses to us for our survival, for our benefit, but only for temporary means. To survive the chasing grizzly bear, to survive the raging wildfire or the tsunami. None of us, not one system in our body is designed to withstand these responses to terrifying and scary moments over the long run. So if you find yourself trapped in any of these things that we've mentioned, these 6 trauma responses or dissociation, please go talk to someone. go sign yourself up for some therapy that can help work through this and give you some other coping skills. But also, that's why we've got this podcast here for you today, and the resources of the How to Care book, and the write up today of there are some simple things you can do to start sorting this out as you wait to see a professional therapist about these things. You don't have to stay stuck in these places. You can rebuild, you can create a new future. And you said you had a few things that you wanted to offer to everybody who's listening, and they'll put those in the write up. Can you explain some of those things you're going to add on here?
Yeah. I created a gratitude journal. I'll tell you why. I'll tell
Yeah.
way back, maybe 14 years ago or so, um, when we were getting ready to take our therapy students to Nicaragua, Gwen and I gave little, pre-test to see, do a little research. And we used one of the strength survey. Um, and at the bottom of the list for both Dr. Sanders and me was gratitude. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. And what the survey was like, when in the last 2 weeks have you had an opportunity to use these things? And neither one of us had. We were just so focused on work and so busy. Blah, blah, blah. I was shocked because I know the research about gratitude. It's so good for us. It's the fastest, most effective way to just feel better in the moment. Name 3 things you're grateful for and why. If you are feeling down, name 5 things you're grateful for and the value they bring to your life.
Mhm.
And the way that I got disconnected from gratitude was kind of mysterious to me. I was just so focused on what I was doing and moving forward. Work, 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 not being. And
Yeah.
there's a preponderance of research about a gratitude journal. 3 things at night, share it with your partner, write it down, say it out loud.
Yeah.
You're gonna feel better. And almost immediately, I'm like, oh, this is like, I need to bring this back into my life. And over time, just kept doing these assessments and gratitude started working its way up. And then I was working with a happiness psychologist, Dr. Amy Backos, and gratitude is a huge part of the work that she teaches. And so I got more diligent on it. And it became like this turning point for me to be so much more optimistic about my work and my life. And the work we do as therapists is challenging, and we sometimes carry the pain of it with us. And gratitude completely shifted my experience of what I was carrying and holding for people. So, fast forward however many, a decade plus, and last year when more wars were happening, was like, how can I contribute? So I made this gratitude journal and I tried to share these ideas more with people on social media and inside the membership. And lo and behold, researchers love gratitude, and there's so much research on it. So I created this journal. It's just a 21-day challenge to really reset you, like that close your eye, quick reset. This is a very quick reset for gratitude. And so I'll have that for your listeners. It's a incredibly powerful way. You make your commitment, do it for 21 days, and I promise you will be different. Your biology will be different.
Yeah. What we focus on is what we see more of. It gets easier.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
true. And I think just my own experience of knowing gratitude's good for us. I grew up with parents who taught me about that, and that I had strayed so far from that one thing shocked me.
It's a good reminder for all of us that the busyness of life, the gotta do, can easily sweep us away like a riptide,
Totally, that's a great
right?
metaphor.
It just popped into my mind like a riptide. And to find moments of places where you can bring that gratitude. You don't have to have a big journal. It doesn't have to be a big project. It's a in this moment, what's one thing I could be grateful for? I can
Yeah,
name 1,000 things right now that I'm not happy about, but can I just look for one that's good? Because it's
yeah.
here too. And it shifts the whole thing. And I know you're in sunny California, but one thing that a lot of my clients have really liked is when I compare it to getting stuck on ice. Like you're spinning all your tires, and there's you could push as much as you want on your car, but you're not going anywhere. But if you have a little bit of sand or a little bit of cat litter and you throw it under your tires, suddenly you're cruising again. because you just needed something to give you traction.
Totally. I grew up in Cleveland and I learned to drive in Cleveland, so I know exactly what you're talking about. It,
Yeah.
it, the ice will just take you where it wants you to go. Yeah, we can let life happen that way, and to have control over our response is huge. And gratitude allows us to stay in the moment and respond with how we want, not just react and lash out or be angry.
To respond instead of react.
Yeah, I love your metaphors, the car with the ice, the riptides. Yeah, life feels like that sometimes.
It does. It does. But there's little things that we can do to bring some of that grit back.
Grit, that's a good
Yeah.
word. Grit and resilience. Yeah. Great. I love what you've done with this
Oh,
book.
thanks.
Like
Thanks.
help people who are now in the space to offer help, a little guidance and inspiration, and then to take their creativity, divergent thinking, and make the exercises their own.
Exactly. And that's been a very hard thing for me to be able to communicate with some of the people I've talked to is they're like, "Well, how exactly do you do it?" I'm like, "Well, you just do it." And you personalize it and customize it to which house you're in or which person you're with and like, "But how? I need the recipe." I'm like, "It's not quite like that."
Yeah. Think of it.
Trust your own kind of instinct to whatever it is about an exercise that's resonating that there's a way to bring that message from the exercise into the space that you're with someone and
Perfect.
train.
That's exactly it. And I think if we always do the project ourselves first, like never just invent or go rogue on a thing and say, here, you do this without having done it yourself, that makes a big difference. But you're right, like personalizing it to this space is possible once you've done it a few times yourself.
Yeah, that is good. Once we try it and we understand what it does, then it gives us like new words to use to
Mhm.
get to help someone else experience a similar like breakthrough moment or moment of coming into the presence. Like if the goal is to get us into that moment and connect with people like with the eco art or with your collage, the goal is to help us come in, like shut off some of this stuff and bring us in. Then we can give some other prompts or we can tweak the directions a little to help others do likewise.
Right. And I think realistic expectations is the best thing we can give is our presence and connection and help someone else be present. Like, we're not going to change someone's complete experience through a week of art interventions, right? That's not how it works. But your presence, your ability to stay focused, be kind, be flexible,
Yeah.
that will be remembered.
Yeah. So to pull it back to those analogies or whatever, we're just trying to give them a couple grains, couple kernels of cat litter to put under their tires as they slip around.
Yeah, we're
We're
gonna
not, it's not our job to fix it all for someone.
Right. We can show them, oh, they got cat litter at the store over here. Anytime you need it, you can get the
Anytime you need
sander
it,
to,
we're there.
yeah,
Yeah.
change their tires.
Yeah. Or when you're feeling overwhelmed, it's a couple things I wanted to pull back in here was the visual stuff of how impactful it is, the importance of shutting the news off. Once you've got like you want to stay in touch or be updated, but get the update and then shut it off. It's okay to go watch a sitcom. It's okay to go outside and not hear anymore.
That's huge. I tell everyone I work with no more news. And like we grew up with this tiny TV, hardly ever watched it. And then all my life I've had this really ambivalent, really like, no, I don't want to watch TV. And we'd have no TV for years. And then we'd have a TV. And then when I was pregnant, I'm like, the TV has to go. I can't tolerate the too much. It's not right. And protecting your mind, like going towards the news and going towards trauma is a trauma response.
Mm.
It's fear-based. Turning it on comes from a place of fear. We know the news wants to hook us and keep us engaged. Of course, we need information, but the visual is not the way to do it.
Whoa, wait. Did you just hear that right? You sure did. Dr. Amy's going to share a little bit more about why getting hooked into the news and watching it over and over, whether it's on TV or your phone and social media, why this is a dangerous, fear based trauma response that can make things worse for us.
The like kind of Freudian answer is really about repetition compulsion, where we have the urge to go towards a trauma in case it's different this time. And it's a defense, it's a way to like self-soothe, to keep looking and hope it'll be different. So it's a like it's not the most primitive defense, but it's like a trauma response kind of defense. Um, the other part of it would be around the visual aspect of it, to like look at the news and to see those images. Those go into our head and they like are part of a large network in our brain to absorb a visual picture, and to have that stress, even though we're a little desensitized to looking at it, to have that visual stress is traumatic. We shouldn't be looking at that kind of material. And maybe like historically, we're designed to process like what's happening in our neighborhood, right? Like the local newspaper or the local news. We're really not designed to be able to process the trauma of global events for like all the billions of people on the planet to see what's happening. It's sort of overwhelms our little tribal community focused brain. I think it also teaches us to think like what they want us to think. That's kind of like the punk rock answer. Like to be able to think for ourselves requires reading and increasing our knowledge of history and increasing our knowledge of other people, other races, other cultures, so that we have a context for the information that we're seeing. So the news gives us a blip and it's completely out of context about what's happening, and so we can't really use it. Like if we want to be better consumers, we got to like read more, study more, that kind of thing, to know the larger context. And the kind of argument I sometimes get is like, oh, but then I won't know what's happening. And literally, you will always know what's happening. There will be people in the world who bring up news stories, and you can have conversations with, if you read it instead of look at it, it's better. But even reading it can be problematic depending on how you're consuming the information. There will never be a thing that happens that you don't know, that you like. There's like literally when awful things happen, someone called me on the phone. I've never had to rely on the news for an immediate situation. Like we just don't really live in that kind of world. If something's awful is happening, it's either happening around you and you're in it, or someone will tell you about it. The less you watch the news, the more you come to understand how toxic it is for you. Once you detox from it, it's so clear what the problem is. And I encourage people to do like 21-day detox from the news. And sometimes it just helps to even pare down, stop watching the news. I've gone like years off and on, and I gotta tell you, when I'm not watching, it's way better. One more thing for therapists, we have enough trauma stories in our head. We don't need to look at more of them.
Can any of you relate? All the overwhelming stories piling on you, paralyzing you with fear? Well, the good news is we don't have to cooperate with this.
Yeah, it makes us think everything's like that. It's
Mm,
the world's a terrible, scary place. People are bad. It gives us the wrong impression.
yeah.
And if we think of like all the good that's happening, how many people are coming to help in LA? So many firefighters from Mexico and Canada have showed up to help. Like people are showing up.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's the thing that will help us feel better. Those videos where people are reunited with their pet, they were at work when the fire happened, they find their pet. We need more of that.
Too. I was joking with somebody. I said, I need to come up with a whole new station. All we do is cover the good stuff. Like, we'll acknowledge that something bad is happening, but those are the videos we're going to collect is all the good things that are happening in the midst. And they're like, well, you'll be out of business in a month because nobody will watch it.
Remember Mr. Rogers, and he worked with art therapist Judy Rubin, right? Like the idea that for everything bad happening, look for the helpers. I love that message. It's something I've taught my son and said so many times. Oh, there's a car accident. Let's see who the helpers are. Oh, look, everyone came out of the barber shop to see what happened with the car accident. And oh, look, we can walk by and offer help too. And it's everywhere. People helping is everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah. And what a great way to train that to people around you. Like to ask your son instead of, oh, look at how bad that crash is. It's where are the helpers? Who showed up? Like to
Yeah.
just help his awareness go there first instead of how awful.
Yeah, bad stuff happens. It's gonna
It
happen.
does. Yeah.
It's being able to respond mindfully, consciously, presently.
I forgot to mention it when you were first showing the collage, but you had showed me that bag earlier that you had attached the collage to, like, how fun to, like, do some art that you can carry around with you and then remind yourself
I know.
going about your day.
I took myself on a writing retreat last year. I just checked into a hotel and worked on things. And this was one of them. I brought my collage material and paper, but then I went and got, carry out dinner and it came in this bag. And I thought, oh, front and back. And then there's inside too. And so I dropped a whole bunch of little things on the inside.
Oh, fun.
And, a little divergent thinking using different supplies. It allows us to see dimensionally,
Mm,
remember all those art masks, how you perceive, how you show yourself on the outside, how you perceive yourself on the inside.
yeah.
Use all of those ideas and thinking of life as so three-dimensional. It's not just right now and what's happening now is how it's going to be. It will evolve and change and shape shift and move around. And, I can rip this up later and make a new collage with it.
Destruction is part of the creative process.
Absolutely. I think
And
people,
even seasonally, I think it's one of the reason I love being up here in the North Woods is we have all 4 seasons. And so you enjoy the beauty, it's fleeting, and you can complain about it. You're like, but it's only a short time if it's too hot or it's too cold. But there's always something new, and you have to go through all of them in order to get the wildlife and the wildflowers and the new birth of spring. You have to have the dormancy of winter, as
Mhm.
brutal as it is.
Yeah. Well, gratitude is that way too, right? I'm grateful I'm safe in my home right now, right? But that implies that I'm also aware that there are people who have lost their home in the fires, right? Like gratitude is able to be there when you have that contrast. And the contrast in life, like the seasons, as you said, the only way to have the spring is to have the winter.
Yeah, and gratitude, it does. You're right. It helps you pull you forward, like be in the moment, but pulling you forward, not getting stuck in that old stuff. So great
Yeah.
ideas today. And is there anything you want to say before we wrap up here and just close it up
I
for
think it's
everyone?
so amazing. This book, this whole project is so important. And I think it's really a good fit for understanding a creative process can be, community oriented and encouraging and really uncomplicated, right? Found objects, like no problem. Draw a circle in the dirt. Let's make
You
some.
don't even have to prepare for it. You're just like, everybody go grab something.
Yeah, I used to go for a walk with a friend of mine, Dr. Shilpa Reddy, and we always stopped and drew a circle in the sand when we were by Stowe Lake in San Francisco and put some things in. It was just a ritual on our walk. We would stop and make something. And, my son would sometimes find rocks and arrange them in a circle and make the quadrants. And, he didn't know what a mandala was. It's just so much a part of who we are. He was like 3 when he was doing this.
Right? And he didn't have to know to benefit and for it to become a part of his life. And just parenting is such an important job. We never know when we're making an impact. Like it's all those little things, those little rituals, they matter. So the little habit of gratitude. So thanks for that, the journal or the the 21-day challenge prompts that'll be
I'm
helpful for people.
excited for your listeners to like have a look at that, and it's a great fit. It's a good compliment for the book.
Well, thank you so much. And you said that you've got retreats that you lead in Paris.
Mhm.
I think it was really fun thinking of the theme that you were talking about, the collage, and you grew up looking at that picture, and now you're bringing people over to Paris.
I know. I have a community partner there, and we focus on like the overarching theme is a treasure hunt. And so I've got a visual treasure hunt. People have to go find and photograph things, the beauty of the city. But there's like the how are you presenting yourself as well? Like how are you going to show up today?
Mm,
And like the visual of like what you're going to look at, how you're going to hold your face is part of your own aesthetic. And there's so much research around, kinesthesia and the proprioception that just like how you hold yourself makes
mm,
change in mood. There's the Amy Cuddy power poses. So much about who you are shows up in your physicality. So we make so much cool art. We eat delicious food, but we spend a day with a master chef. We go to the market, we prepare, but he invents the recipe for us. And so we're creating, it's not following anything. It's really,
Wow, what an experience.
yeah, we do incredible things.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for your time and your contribution and just all the stuff you're doing to inspire hundreds and thousands of people. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jen. You're amazing. I'm happy to
Yes,
be here and support your work, and this is so
thank
exciting.
you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks. You too.